Hello and welcome to the Raw podcast brought to you by the Sunderland Echo. And today we're going to be looking ahead to Sunderland's FA Cup tie at Shrewsbury this weekend. So to preview the match at the Montgomery Water Meadows Stadium, joining myself, Joe Nicholson, we are joined by Ollie Warner from the Salop Podcast. Ollie, how's things?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And we're looking forward to the FA Cup tie, obviously, this weekend. Sunderland in the Championship now, Shrewsbury in League One, 16th place in League One. And just having a look at the table, 3 defeats in a row. It doesn't look like all things are going too well at Shrewsbury at the minute. It just kind of gives an overview of how things have gone in recent weeks and this season.
Yeah, we've had a pretty disastrous Christmas, lost all 3 games against 2 particularly poor sides. I think your listeners and Sunderland fans remember what that's like, losing to poor sides in League One, even though you think you should have done better. Before then, actually, we were on a pretty good run, beat Bolton 3-2, beat Peterborough 3-1 in the FA Cup, and we actually went as high as 9th only a few weeks ago. As you guys know, League One is quite crazy, a bit like the Championship, really. You know, you get a few results, you fly up, you lose a few games, you fly down. So, yeah, we're 16th right now after a pretty terrible Christmas period.
I did have a quick look at Steve Cottrell's interview after the Fleetwood game, the 3-0 defeat at home. Didn't sound too impressed with, firstly, the referee, and secondly, a lot of injury setbacks. So kind of what's the injury kind of situation as things stand going into the weekend's game?
Yeah, we've Steve Cottrell's got a philosophy, which in whole I kind of support, having a small squad. We've got, obviously, in terms of our turnover, attendance is 6,000 or so. So in terms of that money that generates, we need to try and compete with a lot of big clubs in this division. So we've gone for a smaller squad and trying to, obviously use that money on a smaller group of players. Now, what that obviously does is obviously puts at risk the squad when you get injuries. We've got a left wing back Nurse, who's a fantastic player, out of an ACL injury. Our best striker, Dan Udo, is out of an ACL injury. One loanee players out all the time, a right wing back, and then our other right wing back's been out injured, Bennett, and then O'Brien hasn't really been fit all season. Obviously, you guys know O'Brien well. So yeah, we've got a very small squad that's hit with injuries at the moment, and we've been quite unlucky with injuries, which is very frustrating.
Yeah, we'll come on to Aidan O'Brien later on. Quite a number of former Sunderland players in the Shrewsbury squad. Looking at the injury situation, Tom Flanagan, former Sunderland defender, he went off in the first half, didn't he?
Yeah.
Against Fleetwood. I'm assuming then he's a doubt for the game. But how's he done it at Shrewsbury?
Yeah, he'll be a doubt. He's been suffering with a hip injury for a while, and he's been in and out and been going down a few times, which is really frustrating. In terms of his performance, he's as you know, a very solid League One defender. I think playing up him in a back 3, I think suits his skill set, and I think obviously we get a better and Tom Flanagan playing in a back 3 rather than a back 2. Then he's obviously got cover. Then if he gets caught out of position, but also what he allows him to do is also run forward as well. So Pennington on the right and Flanagan on the left have license to run forward, and Flanagan seems to enjoy that role. He gets quite a few cheeky yellow cards running into midfield. And he seems to enjoy that role, and he's been fantastic. He's been a constant 7 really for us in terms of performance, and he's been a really, really good signing for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it looks like then he will be a doubt for the game, obviously, because he went off with that injury. Another player who will miss the game, Carl Winchester, is obviously on loan from Sunderland, won't be able to play against his parent club. What's kind of in the situation with him? Because there is actually a recall clause for Sunderland to bring him back in January, but do you think Shrewsbury will be able to hang on to him?
I'd love us to keep him. I wouldn't be surprised if other League One teams are looking at him as well. So we play 3 at the back, 2 wingers, and we play a bit of a hybrid in midfield, almost like Leahy and Winchester are kind of like 2 box-to-box midfielders, and Tom and then Bayliss plays as a kind of a 10, bit of a free 8 when we're defending. They'll jump into a midfield 3. And yeah, Winchester's been fantastic since he came in. He fits in the group really well. We've got a very hard-working bunch of pros, and he fits in with that fantastically well. He's a very, very good footballer for this level, technically as well as as an athlete as well. And he's been absolutely superb. He's really good at getting the ball. He plays off simple balls. He's one of those players that does the dirty work and some of the simple stuff to allow players to kind of exploit them, to kind of express themselves in the final third. And yeah, he's been a fantastic signing. It's a real shame that he won't be able to play in this game. And I hope maybe we can do the same thing that we did with Flanagan, is maybe try and sign him, and with 6 months left on a deal, maybe we can come to some kind of agreement. But I'd hate to lose Winchester. It'd be great to have him next season as well, because I think he's been a fantastic signing, and he really fits in with the kind of the spirit and the ethos of the squad that we have.
Yeah, he always seemed a very popular member of the Sunderland dressing room, but he's been playing back in midfield, hasn't he? Because last season at Sunderland, he was at right back, but he's been impressing in midfield, has he, this season?
Yeah, he's been playing pretty much. He came in to the squad and he played, I think, maybe 20 minutes or so at kind of right wing kind of position. But ever since then, he's been playing in central midfield. We have been playing a centre back, right wing back, more on loan from Bristol City. He doesn't look comfortable there for me, and I'm surprised we didn't play Winchester there. But Winchester's been playing in central midfield, and to credit to the manager, I think it's probably the right choice. Then we look really balanced with Leahy and Winchester midfield. Maybe it's a bit of a deal as well. He's been told he can play in central midfield rather than playing at fullback. Who knows? I'm just making that up. Who knows? But he's been playing central midfield, and he's a really, really good player and a top central midfielder for League One.
Has Steve Cottrell said anything about potentially signing? Because from a Sunderland point of view, I wouldn't have thought he'd probably be recalled in January, and I don't think he'd really fit back into that squad in the Championship. And he's only got 6 months left on his contract at Sunderland. So now, if Sunderland are going to sell him, now is the time. But do you think Shrewsbury could be that club?
I think there's a possibility. He seems like the kind of player that wants to play first-team football. It's probably why he left Sunderland when he did, so he could get that first-team football. In terms of Cottrell giving stuff away, he doesn't give anything away at all. Okay. There's never really too many juicy bits given out in press conferences. I think it is quite a challenge for the media covering Shrewsbury Town, because there's not a lot that you get out from the club. No mentions about Winchester at all in any post-match or pre-match interviews with the manager. He keeps his cards really close to his chest, and often the first time we ever hear about anything is when it actually is on the club website. So yeah, gossip and stuff around Shrewsbury is very much a minimum. We're a small club. We keep things quite private. And the first time we really find out about signings is when it's been made official.
Well, we'll come on to the other Sunderland link as well. Might as well go over it now. Aidan O'Brien, a player who signed for Shrewsbury in the summer. But looking at his stats, he's only played 6 League One games. So is that all because of injury?
Yeah, it was a real coup signing, and one that upset Portsmouth fans. And when we signed him, they thought that they were going to sign him, and they were disappointed that we managed to beat them to him. Yeah, we were hoping that he was going to be a bit of a marquee signing for us, play up front with Dan Udoh. But unfortunately, Dan Udoh, as I mentioned, has got an ACL injury. And yeah, Brian has been in and out of specialists and getting injections and checkups. And he was on the bench on Sunday. He did come off the bench against Cheltenham over the Christmas period for a short cameo. I think he's on his way back from injury. Maybe he could get some minutes against Sunderland. But yeah, it's been really frustrating, really. He's been injured and hasn't been able to contribute for us on the pitch.
Yeah, I saw that he'd been back on the bench in recent weeks, so possibly he could feature against Sunderland, his former club. But you mentioned with the injury setbacks, with the kind of difficult results over the Christmas period, how seriously then do you think Shrewsbury are going to take this game against Sunderland in the FA Cup?
Probably as serious as most of our fans. I don't think Shrewsbury Town will pay. I don't know. There's that carrot, isn't there? If we beat Sunderland and get into the next round, get a big tie against a Premier League team, with a big stadium, and get £1 million in the bank, Spurs away or something like that would be a dream. I think that's the only carrot, really. I expect the attendance to be quite low on Saturday, and I expect that we probably would rotate if we had players, but we don't have players to rotate. So I imagine we'll play a pretty much full-centre team. How much we really care about this competition, I'm not sure. I think obviously playing Sunderland are a good team, doing really well in the Championship. It's a tough tie, and yeah, it's not. I don't think it's an exciting tie for either sets of fan bases. But yeah, I don't think we'll be too many tears if we got knocked out.
Yeah, you were saying before we came on air that Shrewsbury previously had some big clashes against Liverpool, and I suppose that is kind of, as you were saying, if they can get past Sunderland, that is maybe the carrot to try and, in the next round, get a big tie away from home.
Yeah, I think, going somewhere different is always fun, isn't it? And going somewhere, that's why I think this tie is probably not so exciting for both sets of fan bases, given we've played you so many times in the last few years. So yeah, I think if we got a result, I didn't expect us to beat Peterborough, to be honest, but we beat them 3-1. So you never know, miracles do happen. We have beaten beaten Sunderland in recent years. So maybe we can get a result, but I'm not too hopeful, to be honest.
Talking about Steve Cottrell as well, previously a person that was former assistant at Sunderland under Howard Wilkinson. He was appointed at Shrewsbury in 2020, I think, November 2020. So kind of how's he viewed now at Shrewsbury, and what do the fans make of him?
So yeah, it's been a really interesting period as Steve Cottrell's our manager. As most managers come in, they come in when the team is struggling. And in his first month or so, he was absolutely fantastic. We got some fantastic results. He got manager of the month. And then unfortunately he had COVID, and then he was kind of half managing us from his hospital bed. That's much how passionate he is about football. He came back, and we didn't have the best summer in terms of recruitment. I think that's probably partly because Steve was, still suffering from long COVID. Last season we did okay. There was a lot of gripes from the fan base that we got a small squad and we didn't have a lot of talent. That's been really frustrating. This season, if you'd asked me this question probably 4 weeks ago, I'd probably a lot more positive, because we've got some really good results. We've signed some very good players. Look, recruitment on the main from Steve Cottrell is really, really good. The big problem we have is that the football at times is quite industrial. We play counter-attacking football, quite defensive at times. We don't create a lot of chances. It can be quite boring to watch. And if you're playing boring football and not winning, that's a recipe for fans starting to get a little bit frustrated. And after 3 defeats over Christmas, and there was a bit of moaning, and not a huge amount, but there was moaning and griping, I think, among the Shrewsbury Town fan base at a really poor result. And kind of talking about Steve Cottrell's style of football, and then also the fact that we do have this small squad. And if you sign in a small squad and then you sign players who've got a bit of an injury record, like O'Brien and Da Costa on loan from Coventry, that's going to give you animation to the fans to criticise the manager. So in the main, I think Steve Cottrell's got a lot of credit still with the Shrewsbury Town fan base. I think it'd take a lot for him to lose that at the moment, but it's been a really frustrating Christmas period. And as I said, repeating again, the football's quite boring. So I think January is going to be really key for most teams. A lot of teams, hopefully we can sign a couple of players, give us some options, and hopefully we can pick up some results. But yeah, football being poor, and also Steve Cottrell being quite, trying to think of a polite word, being quite aggressive sometimes and a little bit bitey in post-match interviews. He has kind of lost faith with the Shrewsbury Town fans a few times, where we had a local journalist who was really loved by the Shrewsbury Town fans, and he was criticising openly in post-matches. And yeah, when we lose games, Steve Cottrell is not so happy and smiley, and that all kind of comes together. So yeah, all those kind of pieces come together and kind of turn the fans against Steve a little bit sometimes when he's a little bit narky with the press.
Yeah, when you're talking about the style of play, I remember last season, I think it was towards the end of the season where Sunderland were heading for the playoffs. They played each other at the Stadium of Light, Sunderland and Shrewsbury, and kind of in the build-up to the game, it was Shrewsbury going to be difficult to break down. They hadn't conceded many goals, and it ended up being 3-2. So it actually ended up being quite a high entertaining game. But kind of how do you think they'll approach the game on Saturday? Obviously, they are the home team, but do you think they could be sitting deep and kind of trying to counter-attack on Sunderland? Is that kind of how they'll set up?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We do play some. So it's Steve Cottrell is definitely the best tactical manager I've ever seen in my period of managing Shrewsbury. We went to Plymouth, who hadn't lost at home, and decided to play passing football and played them off the park and should have been winning 2 or 3-0 at half time. So he does have the ability to spring surprises on you and play different style of football. We've got some really good technical players. We do have the ability to pass the ball around if we want to. But our kind of default tactic is, low block, counter-attacking football, and try and hit the ball into channels and try and get yards up the pitch and try and attack you that way. Given Sunderland are doing well, you've got some players that score quite a lot of goals. You're riding high in the Championship. I expect us to play in a low block and be quite defensive, even though we are the home side.
Yeah, we've mentioned a few players that won't be able to play in probably Flanagan and Winchester, but who are the kind of key players then for Sunderland to watch out for in this Shrewsbury side?
So Bayliss plays as the kind of number 10. He's a really good midfielder. Did really well for Coventry. You might have heard of his name. He went to Preston for $1.5 million. Yeah. Never really worked there, and we've signed him. And he's doing really, really well. He's a really, really attacking player. He's one of those players that kind of glides along the pitch, so he's really nice to watch. He's got a really good relationship with Shipley, who's filling in at left wing back. I've mentioned that kind of filling in a bit, as you can tell. So a bit of frustration for the fans. So Shipley's more of an attacking midfielder. Left winger has been playing left wing back. He's got a good relationship with Shipley. And then up front, we've got a decent player on loan called Sadie, who's went on loan to Burton last year, on loan with us this season from Bournemouth. He's quite a stocky, short striker. But when he's on his day, he can be a really good player. He can hold up the ball quite well, and he has got a decent shot on him. His goal scoring record has been a little bit ropey, it's fair to say. He scored a few goals early on. Then he scored one goal in December. So, yeah, he's due a goal. So, yeah, there'd be my players to look out for. And then actually at the back, Pennington's a really good central defender. Dunkley's an experienced pro. So, I think probably our best chance of scoring a goal might be from a set piece. So, with Flanagan, if Flanagan, Dunkley and Pennington are playing, and we are a real danger from set pieces.
Well, yeah, there's definitely been a vulnerability about Sunderland this season from set pieces, a lot of kind of smaller technical players, and they've been missing a few. So that is potentially a vulnerability. If Shrewsbury is strong in that area, that maybe they could hurt Sunderland, especially if they're good defensively. But Ollie, that just about kind of wraps it up for the podcast today. We usually finish by asking our guests for a quick score prediction. How do you think the game's going to go on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm not optimistic at all. Your listeners will like to hear this, but I predict a 2-0 win to Sunderland.
Yeah, I was thinking 2-0 as well. I think Sunderland may make some changes. They had quite a lot of injuries, though, the last game against Blackpool on New Year's Day. So it'll be interesting to see if those players are back, how much of the kind of fringe players that Tony Mowbray decides to play. But it sounds like from what you're saying, Shrewsbury don't have too many options with their kind of injury setbacks at the minute and with a thin squad. So we'll see how the game goes on Saturday. Ollie, thanks a lot for joining us on the latest episode of the Raw podcast. We are recording this on Wednesday. Tony Mowbray will be speaking to the media on Thursday ahead of Saturday's game against Shrewsbury. So you can find all the latest Sunderland news over on the SAFC section of the Sunderland Echo website. Also, of course, it's the transfer window, so any transfer news and gossip, where you can find the latest over on the Echo website as well. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Sunderland Echo, SASC on YouTube, and press subscribe. Thanks a lot for listening to the latest episode of the Raw podcast.